Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here on a slight chill of an evening. It was supposed to be a little worse, but I think it's just fine by me. Pretty soon all those beautiful trees and plants out there will change their colors and brights, reds and oranges and golds. It just is as lovely to me as the summertime as the spring. Spring is a little windy. I don't like that quite as much. It messes up my hair. But for those of you who do not know me, I'm Joe Shepard. I'm the president of the university. And we just are so honored for several reasons tonight. One, this lecture series was started by just a beautiful couple who believed in some things that we believe in. For example, when I came here a decade ago, and I've said this, and some of you will have to bear with me because I'm going to keep repeating it until the day I die, that we need to do more for women in the arts. Now, the men who are in the arts, don't get offended by that comment, because we've had the last however many centuries of messing things up, so now it's the women's turn. And what I mean by that is if you go to a museum, 7% of the artwork in the museum is labeled as that of being from a female. It doesn't mean that only 7% is, there's a lot of unlabeled pieces. But of those that are labeled, that's the ratio. We need to change that. And one of the other things that I found when I came here was that we need good positive examples. And so this lecture series was born. And I went to a couple in Santa Fe, Edwina and Charles Milner. And why they would come to Silver City and be part of us is because they too saw something special, something different. And they opened up their wallet, but more importantly, their heart. And tonight, Charles could not be with us, but Edwina, who's just a dear, dear person and a patron not only of us, but of the arts throughout the world, I want to thank you for being here. Now, as I introduce this artist, I got to give a couple other shout-outs to a couple other people. We have some new people here tonight, but one in particular, Jill Winburn, is the curator and the gallery director. And I want to thank you, if you wouldn't mind just kind of standing up here. Jill's eye for the detail is absolutely phenomenal. You're going to see, of course, the pieces properly displayed with the right light, just really making them shine. But it does not shine unless you have a great artist. But before I get to the great artist, I have to introduce my wife, Valerie Flame. Thank you, honey, for being here. Okay, after all of that, let me get to the artist. Diane Marsh is renowned in her work of realism. Diane, when I took a look at your pieces, I have to tell you, scenes from Cien Años de Soledad, 100 Years of Solitude, came to mind, that magical realism. That's just one person. That's the beauty of art. Some of you can disagree with me. We can have a conversation, maybe even a fight. You'll win, because I'm a lover, not a fighter. But as I looked at your artwork, and as you're going to see, it's simply breathtaking. To draw and to create the dimensions of the human face and the human body and the human spirit, and capture that on a two-dimensional plane, for me, I find incredible. And I think you're going to join me in that sentiment. But without further ado, allow me to turn this program over to a wonderful artist and a new friend, Diane Marsh.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I have a few thank yous of my own. I just want to thank Edwina and Charles Milner for creating this wonderful lecture series and for supporting me as an artist. I want to thank Valerie and Joe, Faye and Floyd, Jill and Ed, Linda and John, and all the folks out at Bear Mountain who've this has just been an incredible adventure, my first time in Silver City. So thank you and welcome to everyone, especially the students, if there are any here. I'm going to start this lecture with some very early work when I was in graduate school, just a couple paintings, just to show you the whole development of my work. So thank you all for being here. Okay. This is a very early piece, and if it's too loud or not loud enough, would you please let us know? When I was a young artist, I was in graduate school at Buffalo, New York, and as a young artist, you're very influenced by other artists. It's kind of your job to look at other artists and to figure out who you are and what you want to say and develop your own iconography. So you do a lot of that as a younger artist. So I was looking at Richard Diebenkorn. He had a major retrospective at the museum there, and so this is very Diebenkorn-esque. This is called Figure at a Table. This was a friend of mine, and she ended up running the film program at the University of Buffalo and went on to the Andy Warhol Foundation for about 30 years. She's just retired now, but we were in school together early. And this was 4 by 4 feet. It's an oil on canvas. This is called blue-gray interior with figure. I should say that for quite a while, I was just doing work that was about color, and the figures to me didn't have any sort of psychological content. This was 5 feet tall, 7 feet long, and I was doing these about in 1978 when I was in graduate school. This is red interior with figure. It's all about color. I used the template of my parents' kitchen because of the grid and the tiles and the plaid shirts, and so of course I was looking at colorists like Matisse or Monet or Vuillard or Bonnard and all those kind of people and all kinds of artists as I tried to discover what I wanted to say as a young artist. And this is 6 by 7 feet, and that was my father. I should say that I paint myself about 50% of the time, and the rest of the time I paint my family or some friends. This is called Red Green, another color study with, I didn't even think there were people in them. And this is also from 1979. This is called Middle-Aged Woman at Table, again using the grid, the template from the kitchen, just to explore color. These are all life-size, and this one is probably 4 by 5 feet, something like that. There's the portrait of the young artist, but this is called Arch. This is Young Man at Table, and again, same thing. So let me see where we go from here. So I was very involved with pattern. I didn't know that there was a movement in the late 1970s, early 80s called the pattern and decoration movement. I guess we all just kind of assimilate what's going on in our worlds. And you'll see that I really got heavily involved in pattern, but later on I discovered that I was part of an exhibition out at the Los Angeles County Museum, pattern and decoration, just a couple years back. So it was interesting. That's when I realized I was part of a movement. I didn't know it. I really had no idea. Okay, so I moved to New York City, and I had a loft in Tribeca. And this was my next door neighbor. His name's Bernie. He was a lawyer, and I used to hear him at night with all of his male clients who were getting divorced. I could hear through the walls, he'd be crying and drinking. This is 6 feet tall and 9 feet long. It's all invented. Some of it's real. The space isn't real. The window's not real. I put the New York buildings in and all of that. So there's a funny story with this painting too, because when I left New York, I couldn't get it down the elevator or out of the building, so I talked Bernie into buying it for me. And he's still in the building. Okay, so this is a really unusual piece. I was in New York, living in Tribeca, and it was a great, great time to be in Manhattan. It was 1980. There were people like Cindy Sherman, David Solly, Eric Fish, April Gornick. I could go Robert Longo, all of them. So many people. It was just an exciting time in the art world. And the art world was very, very accessible in the early 1980s. You could walk into galleries. It was very friendly. It's not very friendly now. It's a lot harder. And the reason I was able to go to New York, and I want to tell you young artists this, if any of you are figurative artists, there's a wonderful grant called from the Elizabeth Greenshields Foundation in Canada for young figurative painters. And I got that grant. So after I graduated university in Buffalo, I got that grant and I was able to move to New York City and get the Loft in Tribeca. So this is somebody that I knew in New York, and this is 6 by 6 feet, and look at the wonky old computers. Again, it's a completely made up space. He was an early computer geek and he was building computers, so just somebody that I knew. And again, just the architectural things, and of course, there's nothing psychological about any of these paintings in my mind. So at this point, I believe, I've been applying for the Roswell Artist in Residence grant. Is anyone familiar with that grant? Oh, yes. We actually have a board member from the foundation here. Well, it's the best grant in the country, maybe in the world. So if you're a young artist, look it up. You apply for it, and if you get it, you get to go to Roswell, New Mexico. You're given a house, a furnished house, a big studio, a monthly stipend, money, and a little bit of money for materials. So when I was 24 or 25, I was one of the youngest people ever to receive this grant, and I was so excited. I'd been in New York City for a year, and I got this grant. I just couldn't wait. And my work changed. This is the first painting I did in Roswell. It's 6 feet tall and 9 feet wide. And this is John Toriano. He's a well-known artist in New York. He works with jeweled images and jeweled paintings, and that's one of his paintings on the wall. I don't know if you can see the difference in the light. See how gray that is? It wasn't intentional. It was just the fact that I was now in the Southwest and I was experiencing the light, and it made me just do different things with color. And look at all those patterns. Oh my. So this is another one. This is 7 by 8 feet. This is a couple that was on the grant with their dog. It's all made up, not a real place. Color's all made up, everything's invented. This is another one, red interior with figure buttoning his shirt. Again, just wanting to explore red again. It's an invention, all of it. This is called, let's see, what is this? White Mountain National Wilderness. 2 figures with view, White Mountain National Wilderness. Again, the color and the luminosity of the Southwest just permeated my being, and it was not intentional. This is 6 by 6 feet. Another painting I did at the time in Roswell. I actually was very productive in Roswell. I think I managed to do about 8 paintings. And the amazing thing about having this grant was that I didn't have to work, and I could just be an artist, and it changed my life, because then I realized I could actually do that. I could spend my life being an artist. And so I always did that. I always tried to work at the bare minimum, and I always focused on my painting. That's my dog, Chica. This is a figure interior with view, Bitter Lakes Wildlife Refuge, Roswell, New Mexico. This is one of my favorite places, is the Bitter Lakes Wildlife Refuge in Roswell, where all the sandhill cranes come. And that painting is 6 feet tall and 5 feet wide. Can everyone hear me okay? I feel like I'm going in and out of this mic. I got back to New York City. And if you see, the patterns are starting to fade off the walls. And I finally said, wow, I wonder what that looks like. And I did this self-portrait, though I don't call it a self-portrait, this is untitled. I started working on paper. This is 40 inches tall and 30 inches wide. I didn't have any money. I was living in a 4th floor walk-up in Little Italy, and painting there as well. So I started working on paper. And this would have been 1981 or 82 when I left New York. And it was good I left New York, because I was a wild child. And it saved me. No, this is when I came back to New York. It was good I left the first time. Then I came back. This is called Untitled, and this is about 40 by 30, around the same time. These self-portraits, I was just sort of exploring
putting my foot into psychology a little bit. 1983, I think, maybe this. When I left Roswell, I should say that I drove through Chicago, and I stopped at the Frumkin Struve Gallery in Chicago. And Frumkin Gallery in New York City was the top gallery for figurative artists in the 1980s and 70s. Showed Philip Pearlstein and Robert Arneson and different people. And so he had a branch in Chicago. I stopped and left my slides, if any of you know what slides are. And so I never expected to hear from him again, but a couple of years later, they wrote me and they came to visit me in New York, and they saw these paintings. This one is called Despair, 1984. Again, oil paint on paper. Let's see what the next one is. This one is called Embrace. So they came, this is 1983, they came to my studio in Manhattan. I had moved out of the 4th floor walk-up, I believe, into a 5th floor walk-up. And I had a little bit bigger space. I had a couple of rooms. It was in Little Italy, and so I had 2 rooms for a studio and pretty much lived in the kitchen. So they came to visit me from the gallery. And my focus was always just painting. I didn't care about selling art. That was never an expectation back in the early 1980s. Artists didn't sell work. It wasn't. Now it's a business concern, but then it was not. They came to visit me in my studio, and they said, we'd like to put these in a show on paper pieces. And I said, well, okay, if you will return them to me as soon as the show is over. And they looked at me like I was crazy, because of course they were a business. And they looked at me and they said, Diane, we're going to try and sell them. I said, oh. And some were barely dry, and I wanted to keep them. I do my work because I want to see it in the world. I don't think about, I do it because I want to sell anything. So I don't do very much work. Anyway, they did sell them all, and it was life-changing for me. And it was 1984, 1985. I was with them and selling work, and had gotten an NEA grant, and I was showing in all kinds of places around Manhattan. My career was really on the upswing, and it was an amazing time. And let's see what happens. I did this one called Anguish, oil and paper. And I did this one when I was in New York, and this is a picture of the Bitter Lakes Wildlife Refuge in Roswell. I was pining for New Mexico. But at any rate, it was a very exciting time. Unfortunately, I had to suffer the tragic death of my partner, and I couldn't stay in New York much longer. So I wrote to Donald Anderson, who is the funder and creator of the Roswell Artist in Residence Program, and he invited me back to Roswell. He gave me a 4,000 square foot loft in downtown Roswell. And so in 1986, I ended up back in Roswell for a couple of years, rent-free. It was great. Well, I cried a lot and I painted a lot. And I did this painting. This was my last painting in New York City. And this is 7 feet long and 36 inches high. And I had to paint it. I had moved by this time, after the death of my partner, I had moved into a little, another 5th floor walk-up, and it was very tiny. It was like 10 by 20 feet, so I painted in the kitchen, and I didn't have a wall long enough to put this on, so I painted it turned it up the other way, and I never actually saw it I had to turn. So when I sent it off to my dealer, unfortunately they damaged half of it. Yeah, it's one of my favorite pieces. It's called You Never Know When You'll Run Out of Time. So I think that's probably, we could all relate to that. You never know when you'll run out of time for the people we love. Anyway, I cut it in half because they damaged half, and I sold the other half by itself, but this was an important piece. This is called Release. I did this also maybe 1986, and it's an oil and paper. All of these are now probably twice life size, 1.5 to 2 times life size, so very big. I always play with scale. This, I can't really tell you what it's about. I think rebirth. This work is about, this work that I'm coming into now that I'm going to show you is about the idea of going through pain and sorrow in life to heal yourself, to grow, to become a greater person, to become more compassionate human by going through these things and facing down our pain and our traumas. This is called Hold Me, Save Me. And this is, I think it's like 5 feet tall. But it's that idea of trying to save the ones you love. This is called Where Have I Been, What Have I Seen? And you probably can't imagine that people actually buy these, and this is hanging in someone's house. I can't. And the people are amazing. Most people that buy my work is from the heart. It's not intellectual work. It doesn't tell a story. It's very spiritual, and it's from my heart. So it's about feeling. And they love it. I still hear from them. This is called Lost. And again, I started doing diptychs. There was the previous one and this one. And it's about trying to connect the human with the landscape so that one could heal. This is 30 inches by 80 inches, and it's oil on wood. That's my dog Iris. Animals are very important to me. I think they're very important for all of us. And I was really nervous about putting a dog in a painting because, I thought people would judge me or it would be too emotional or sentimental, but I didn't care. So that's Lost. And this is from 1986, 87. This painting is in the show. It's one of my favorite paintings. It's called Moving Towards Light. So again, it's this idea of human transformation, transcendence, self-growth. And I didn't know what image I was going to put on with the other half of the figure in the water, but I stepped outside and I looked up and I saw the light coming through the clouds, and I did a little painting, and then that's how this painting was born. And this is 36 by about 80 inches from 1987. Okay, so I always played around with scale. So this is in the 4,000 square foot loft in Roswell still. And that's a young artist there, not looking very happy. And I'm with, this painting is, I think it's 7 feet tall. And it's untitled. Whoops, hey, how did that happen? Let's go back. Okay. This is called Deep Into His Distance, and this is 4 feet by 8 feet from 1989. This is my father again, and this was done while he was dying. And it's simply what it says, Deep Into His Distance. It's oil on canvas. And again, trying to put people, connect them with nature. In my mind, that's what we need in order to be whole as humans, to heal. This is called loss. So this was my feeling about losing someone. When they die, you hold on to their shirts. And this is 4 by 4 feet. I don't do it to talk about me. I did it to talk about all of us as human beings, how we feel when we lose somebody. And I've had people at the gallery when this was showing in Denver, they cried in front of this painting. So they cried for their own reason. I think I was hitting a chord. And again, somebody bought this and it's hanging in their dining room. You know, right? This is called Death and Disbelief, 1990. I remember when I saw this image, I said, wow, this looks like the disbelief that comes with death. That's what I said to myself, and that's how it got titled. Again, everything's made up, all the color, all the light. I work from a variety of sources, my imagination, photographs, mirrors. This is called A Strange Calm. And this painting, it came about, I looked at it and I said to myself, wow, that's a strange calm. Like you've been through the war and suddenly things are just like they're getting okay. Mm-hmm. And that's why I painted this. This is in the exhibition too. This is called Do Not Go Gentle. This is my brother. Again, trying to connect people with nature in order to heal. It's a hard process. Don't go gentle. It's tough, but you'll get through it. This is 3 feet by 6 feet. So his head is like this. This is called Rage, Rage Against the Dying of the Light. When I was in Santa Fe, I got to meet Ed Harrison and Amy Madigan. She's an actress. He's an actor, and they were friends of a friend, and she agreed to pose for me. And so she's been in 3 of my paintings. And this is one of my favorites. It's at in the Hess Collection Museum out in Napa, California. It's a good home for it. It's 2 feet by 4 feet. This is called The Lost Girl. This is also in the Hess Collection out in California. And it's there's some words scratched onto the side. So now I'm starting to use some words in the paintings too. My feeling is that as an artist, you use whatever you have to communicate. There aren't any rules, and if you make rules, just break them, because you don't need to have rules. So I started using words because it was important to communicate something. So the words scratched up along the side are, I feel her frantic inside of me. So this is about, your inner child, discovering your inner child, and trying to heal from all of that, go through that process. And this is quite large. I think it's like 54 inches tall by 72 or something. This is called The Ending of Sorrow. Again, I started using words, and now all these little icons are floating around in a more of a mystical, spiritual space. There's little children, a baby, a howling wolf, howling the prayer out to the universe. There's often an antelope that has an arrow in its neck to talk about pain. And there are words scratched into the surface of this. You can't see them, but it's a quote by Krishnamurti that talks about the fact that you can end your sorrow by facing your pain and sorrow in life instead of avoiding it through our addictions or whatever we all do to avoid facing ourselves down. Then you can heal, and therefore that is the ending of sorrow. So, and this is at the Museum of Nebraska Art, Kearney, Nebraska. This is in the show. This is called Haunted Silence. And there's some words in the middle that say, I will come back to me. So there's like 2 realities. There's the reality of memory or dream or sort of a mystical world thought, and then the realistic reality of the human below. And she's separated from herself, and she needs to come back. And she has a lot of things haunting her silence. And this is actually Amy Madigan. She posed for this painting for me, but it's about all of humanity and this process we go through. And this is 54 inches. This is in the show. You get to see it. This is a wonderful actress, Jo Harvey Allen, who's married to Terry Allen. And this is an oil and paper. It's called Study for an Unlived Life. And she also lives in Santa Fe, and she posed for me very graciously. And this painting I did too with her, and they're for my mother. I think about people who don't live their life, aren't able to for whatever reason, and so I did this for her. This is called Hope. This is Amy. There it is. You can see the scale. So you see the head is quite a bit bigger than my head. So it's pretty large scale. This is at the state capitol in Santa Fe. It's called Prayer. And again, these aren't religious paintings. They're spiritual paintings. And I'm very honored that they hung this in the main lobby of the state capitol of New Mexico. And it is 7 feet tall. Wow. The wolf howls the prayer up above. And there's words and things in this painting for my mother. This is called To Heal Your Unlived Life, is Jo Harvey again. And again, Abiquiu, New Mexico is one of my favorite places. Trying to put people into nature. This is 2 by 4 feet. And I actually eventually put myself in Abiquiu. And I did this like 1993, 94. And these are mostly all in private collections or museums, except for the ones that are here, actually. This is very different. Whoa, I guess I got happy. I got married, and I did this. It's one of 2 still lifes I've ever done. This is 5 feet by 7, I think, or 8. And it's called Anton's Flowers. My son is named Anton, and I did this after he was born. So it's really just about beauty. And I like to think all my work is about beauty, about light, and about truth. So it's a great big oil on canvas. So I put myself in Abiquiu. That was my house, my Adobe house I built on 14 acres in front of the mountain. I loved it. I moved because my son was a little boy. We were in the schools there, and it got a little rough. But people used to say to me, "Why are you sticking, doing those diptychs?" I remember someone said, "Why don't you just put the people out in nature?" And I thought, how can I do that, right? I did it. This is called Sanctuary. This is my son when he was about 5 years old. And that's the Bitter Lake Sanctuary in Roswell. And so for me, the wildlife sanctuary is a sanctuary for the cranes. The mother is a sanctuary for her child, and the earth is a sanctuary for us all. And that's why I did this painting. It's oil on paper. It's at a museum. Okay, so I put them out in nature. Here's another one. And so now they're changing. And this is called Child's Prayer. It's in the exhibition. This is my son. He's standing right outside my back door in Abiquiu. And the prayer is scratched into the top of the painting. There are words that talk about, the Iroquois word about considering the next 7 generations in all of your actions. And we haven't done a very good job of that here on planet Earth recently. And once I had my son, my work moved out of this idea of personal transformation and self-growth and into what are we doing, what are we leaving for our future generations. So this is a very special painting for me. All the little icons floating around at the top are really about a mystical reality, the reality of intuition, and I'm a bit of a mystic. I have a lot of experiences, so the work comes from a lot of places. So it's the Child's Prayer. Please, think of us. And this is 5 feet tall. This is one of my favorite paintings. And it belongs to the collection of Edwina and Charles Milner. It's called Rest in Me. And it's an oil on paper. And again, there's that pronghorn with a little arrow and a little blood. And I'm inviting nature. I'm very empathic, so I'm inviting nature to rest in me because I love it so much. And I always cry when I talk about this stuff, so try not to. There he is. I first encountered pronghorn in Roswell when I was on the grant down there and fell in love with them. This is called the Weeping Drawer, and I guess it's kind of a prayer for the earth. It says on the bottom, there's words, it says nature is a doorway to spirit. I had a dream about this painting, and I was told to put my paint in the Weeping Drawer, and it took me 3 or 4 years to do it. I had someone build me a box with a drawer in it so that I could create this painting that would be the Weeping Drawer. There's little pronghorn with little arrow, taking good care of them. There's another little painting underneath that's the earth is on fire, and then a child, the innocence of a child. So we just lock them right up. This is called Circle of Compassion. Really started using words. All the adults have their eyes closed because they won't wake up. And we do borrow the earth from our children, as it says. All these icons of animals. And there's some words by Albert Schweitzer that says, you know, until we at any rate, there's words by Albert Schweitzer in Chief Seattle. Chief Seattle says, what is man without the beast? If all the beasts were gone, man would soon perish from a great loneliness of spirit. Whatever happens to the beast soon happens to man. That's from 1854. So again, this is my niece. She posed for this. And it's about, you know, having compassion, having mercy for all of life, and that we, you know, we adults need to wake up, take care of our planet. This is a drawing. So I was really busy working at a job, pretty full-time job for the last 12 years, and I didn't have a lot of time to paint, and people always said, why don't you do drawings? I always said, I don't want to do drawings because they don't interest me unless I can use color and light, because that's a whole kind of content in itself, light and color. But, so anyway, I decided to do this drawing, and this is in the show. It's called My Son, My Son. I love them both the same. The orangutan and my son. This orangutan, he just reminded me of my beautiful little boy, who's now a young man, all grown up, but I did this because of that. This is called Living in Their Wounds, and each of these animals has an arrow with a little blood, and this is a large drawing, larger than life, and so I'm just showing you how I feel, the pain that I feel about what's happening in our world. There's giraffes, I don't know if you know, they're endangered. White rhinos are endangered. If you could believe, the meadowlark is also endangered. And the pangolin in the middle of her body is one of the most endangered creatures on the planet. Elephants are endangered, mountain gorillas, and of course there's my favorite pronghorn and a wolf. So this is a large drawing that I did. I always wanted to do it as a painting, but I just couldn't, I didn't have the consistent time to be able to paint it. And with a drawing, you can just go back and pick up your pencils and draw, but with paint, the paint was always drying, and you'd go back 2 weeks later, and it was too hard. So I just decided I would give it up and draw it. This is me drawing. This is called They Come in My Dreams. And this is me, and there's an elephant, because the elephants come in my dreams. I love them, and I dream about them a lot. And so there's the finished drawing.
Oh, wow.
And it's very, well, you can see how big it is. It's like at least twice, if not 3 times life size. So this one recently went to New York, which helped me purchase a little tiny building in Estancia, New Mexico, where I now live, because I no longer work at my job, so I'm not retired, I'm just on to the next phase. And so I bought this old building that's 100 years old, and I'm rehabbing it. And so very grateful that somebody purchased this. I miss it because I really didn't want to sell it, and I was hoping to have it in this show actually. But it went for a good cause. I have a house or a building. Or as I like to call it, I have an urban ground floor loft in the tiny town of Estancia, New Mexico, right on Main Street. It's so strange. So then I did this painting, and this is in the show, and it's called Elephant Prayer, of course. And there's some words on it. It says, we all share the same breath. And so you can see now she's radiating the prayer out from herself. And that the whooping crane is endangered, and the children are certainly have a lot to face in the coming years. And the elephants, and the lotus flower. So. And this is something I finished, I think, in 2020. And there's a detail. But this is in the show, so you'll be able to see it. I don't know if you can tell. They're like a lot more realistic. There's a lot more stuff going on in the flesh than in those early ones. They are painted much simpler. I don't know why this happened. Again, I'm a very instinctual painter. Everything is intuition. The light just, it comes out of me and I don't know where it comes from. So when I started, I spent several years painting this. I know it sounds crazy, but between my job and the fact that I kept seeing in my head more and more that I needed to paint. So it just got more and more complicated. And the earlier work, the work that went to Struby Gallery and the work after a few years after that, it's very, very different. They're very much different now. I'd say Edwina's piece with the antelope in my head was a kind of a pivotal moment. Her piece things started to shift in that piece. And now they're just getting more. This was done in 2020. So this is the last painting I'm going to show you. This is called Whisperers. So, and it's tiny. I've never done a small one. This is my first, and everybody says, why don't you paint a small one? Because we're all looking at our phones now, and we like little paintings. But I like big ones, because the scale's an interesting issue for all of you art students too. You know, how big are you going to say something? How big does it need to be in order to say what you need to say? And I decided I had this really cool little canvas that was quite thick, and I thought, and I really wanted to do this image. And again, I lacked time, so this is tiny. This is 14 inches, little tiny, and it's in the exhibition, so you'll get to see it. But it's called Whisperers, so it's about my life as a bit of a mystic, as I like to say. And this is my urban ground floor loft in Estancia. And there I am, and this is the last image I have. I don't know where we're at with time. 7:12.
It's 7:15, Diane,
Oh,
so
we're
we have
late.
time for a few more questions.
Okay, we started at 6. Oh, good, perfect. 45 minutes. Okay, we have 15 minutes for questions, so I'm going to turn around. I hope you have some questions for me. Please have some questions. We can put this in. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes.
I'm going to ask the question I asked you yesterday. 'Cause
Okay.
I thought it was an interesting answer. And it has to do with that notion of whether or not you feel as an artist you can reflect the emotion and the emotion that you're depicting in these larger paintings if you did them on a smaller scale.
Mm-hmm. I think that the reason that I do them larger than life. If I do them life size, people usually think they're smaller. If I do them twice life size, people usually think they're as big as they are. So it's about communication. I don't feel that I want to do something that doesn't communicate out to people in the audience, people that experience my work and feel it. Why would I do it if it didn't communicate? So I want to give myself a chance to communicate the feeling. So it's big, you know, so you get it. If it's small, well, you're not really confronted with it as much. You don't enter into it. You don't, you know, you don't feel it. It becomes small. It's easy. It's like, you know, looking at your phone, right? So they're big so they confront you, so that you can join in. You can be part of it for communication. Why? I just don't feel like there's any reason to do something if it doesn't communicate. And we all do work for different reasons. People are intellectual. They do work that's from their head. It communicates that. People make beautiful art that's more decorative. It's all valid. It's whatever you came here as an artist, whatever's in your soul, as you sort of channel all of the information in your own life through your work. You each have something special, and I'm talking to the young ones here. You have something to say that's just about you, and you gotta find it. It's hard to find. You know, you gotta go deep, you gotta be willing to look. But that's your gift that you have to give the world through your art. And it takes a lot of work, but it's special. So everybody's different, whether it's just you want to do, you work abstractly, geometric, from your head, you know, realism, whatever it is. Yes.
So how do you reconcile the last painting, the 14-incher? Do you think that you're able to communicate as well with that 14-incher?
Yeah.
Or do you think you're going to go on more with different sizes?
I'm probably not going to do very many small ones, but I loved doing that one. It was more intimate, and it's an intimate picture. There I sit, it's me. So, and it's about something that is very private to me, mystical experiences, so it felt okay that it was intimate. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't have rules. I think if you have rules, you should break them. So, because I remember a long time ago when I was in New York, and I visited with Alan Frumkin at the gallery, and he said, beware of working in a series, you know, because he was looking at all those kitchen table paintings I was doing.
Yeah.
He also said I was the best figurative painter he'd seen in many years, and I was thrilled. So, but I never did get to show in his gallery. But, so, yeah, break the rules. Yes, anyone else? Yes.
You stated that your work is about beauty, light, and truth.
Mm-hmm.
That defines nature. How did you come upon nature, and how did nature inform you about making work, going from the patterns of New York to?
That's a good question. As a small child, I grew up in a more rural area, and I spent most of my time in the forest. And I knew my way through the forest. I knew the trees, I knew everything. So I just grew up like that. I loved animals. I was born this way, I think. So living in New York City was not easy for me. It was difficult. And I was there for 7 years. And the experience in Roswell was incredible, being able to go back and live, you know, out in the wide open of the Southwest was really important. So once I went back to New York after that experience, I just wanted to come back to New Mexico. But I think I was just kind of born that way. Really love animals. I've never been without an animal in my life since I was 18 years old. This is the first time, just this year, that all my animals have passed. But I've had everything: horses, dogs, sheep, guinea hens, chickens, lizards, cats, just everything. Yes?
So you talk about New York not maybe always being the easiest experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
But what was it like to be a young artist in that environment with the cohort that you might have developed there, as opposed to maybe you didn't have that?
It was incredible. I mean, I don't know now, New York is a very different place, very hard for young artists to go to. I have a lot of friends that live there. Most of them are now living in Brooklyn or farther out because Manhattan's so unaffordable. But at that time, Soho was where all the artists were, and Tribeca, and I got to be there. So I feel very blessed that I had that experience with all those incredible artists. It was wide open, you know, we went to the new museum, was just being formed, we went to all the openings, and it was just really a great time. The early 80s was terrific. So, but I think it's a great experience for artists anyway. It's just, I think it's a lot more difficult now. I do, a lot more expensive, but the young ones always make it. It's not something, I don't think, for an older artist. I wouldn't want to go back, but when you're young, you can do anything. Anyone else? Yes.
Can you talk about your method? It looks to me like there's plastic over that canvas.
Plastic over the, well, they're varnished, you know, they're oil paint, so after I paint them.
In this one?
Oh, no, that's actually a piece of paper, and there's a piece of vellum over it. I hadn't taken it off yet. I was just sitting there and someone took a picture of me in my studio, so I thought it was a cool picture. I like the light in it.
So it's not part of the way you paint?
No, I would take that off. Actually, it was shortly after I moved in, and so I was trying to protect this large sheet of paper that I was going to start a drawing on.
Can you talk a little bit about your method, starting from your sketch or photographs, or?
Well, if for a painting, I'll take hundreds of photographs, and I combine things. The color, the light, it's all an invention, so I can't, it comes from my intuition, so I don't really think it out, and I don't plan things a lot. I'll look at a picture and I'll say, wow, that feels like death and the disbelief that comes with death. I'll just feel one, and one feels like so real, whereas other ones don't feel real. And the same in working with other people as well. You know, it's a feeling. My work's real feeling based.
Yeah.
So that's how I do it. And then I go through lots of them and try to figure out which one I think is worth putting into the world, because I don't do very many. And even as an artist, I have a hard time thinking about putting objects in the world, because I just think it's more stuff. I don't like stuff, I don't have stuff, and I think, why am I creating stuff for the world? Does the world really need it? So I kind of think, you know, maybe I'll do this one. Maybe I won't. And I destroy a lot of them too. So, yeah, some I wish maybe I still had. Yeah, I do, I've cut them up. Anybody else? Yes?
Do your ideas wake you up at night?
Oh, sometimes they come in my dreams, like the elephants. They do. Yeah. Yes?
Have you ever woken up in the morning so inspired by your dream that you just have to rush to your canvas?
No, but what I do is I write all my dreams down. And I journal a lot. So I have a lot of these ideas and images and stuff. In fact, the title for this show, Emerging of Worlds, I looked in my journal several years ago. I had written that down about my work, and I wrote under it, that's a great title for a show. So I was glad I had the chance to use it.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Let's go see the show. Thank you. Thank you very much.